This proof is somewhat difficult. So in order to get there, we need to proceed formally. We need several definitions. Okay, firstly, a discrete memoryless channel or DMC is the triple consisting of Sx, P of y given x, and Sy. I suppose I should do this in the order, sorry, I suppose I should do this in the order Sx, Sy, P y given x, because P y given x is a function from Sx to Sy. Where Sx is the input alphabet. Let's call that the possible input letters x1, x2, and so on up to xm. Is the input alphabet. So these are the symbols that the encoder is allowed to generate. Sy is y1, y2, and so on up to yl is the output alphabet. And P of y given x is the probability of observing y at the output, a certain y at the output, given that a certain x was provided at the input. So in other words, Py given x is a function from Sx to Sy. Furthermore, it satisfies the axioms of probability. So it's always positive, or it's always non-negative, excuse me. And furthermore, the sum over y is always 1. Sorry, this is not correct. It's not a function from Sx to Sy. It's a function from Sy and Sx to the interval 0, 1. In other words, I can take any pair, y and x, plug them in here, and I'll get a probability which has to be on the interval 0, 1. Okay, M need not be the same as L. We've seen an example where M and L are not the same. What example was that?
The error E example.
The erasure channel, that's right. So in the erasure channel, Sx was binary, 0, 1, and Sy consisted of 0, 1, and E. The nth extension of a DMZ is the channel Sx to the n, P of n-fold vectors of y given n-fold vectors of x. Excuse me, sorry, I did it again. Sx to the n, Sy to the n, P of n-fold vectors of x given n-fold, of y given n-fold vectors of x. What, the notation here, this is the this is the Cartesian product of Sx with itself n times. In other words, it's the set of all vectors of length n of x, of Sx. This is the set of all vectors of length n of Sy. So this is similar to an extended source. So remember, a source extension basically involves taking several source letters in a row and putting them together. So this is the same thing. It's putting several channel inputs and outputs together all at once. These statements are obvious. What this is, because it's memoryless, I have to have that if let's let y to the n. This is an n-fold vector, by the way. Actually, I don't like that notation. This notation is in my notes and it's direct from Cobra, but I prefer the notation. Let's change that notation to y from 1 to n. Like that. That means y1, y2, and so on up to yn. And similarly for x. So if I do that, probability of, let's say, the kth output given the inputs from 1 to k and the outputs from 1 to k minus 1. Because it's memoryless, if I basically what this is saying is what's the probability of the output given the entire history of the inputs and the entire history of all the outputs up to the present. This has to equal, because it's memoryless, the inputs, the output doesn't depend on anything except what's happening right now. So this is equal to the probability of yk given xk. So all of the, none of this history matters except for what's happening right now, which is the input xk. So we will assume thus, this is not an assumption, this is actually plain fact. The probability of y from 1 to k, y from 1 to n, given x from 1 to n, is equal to the product from I equals 1 to n of p yi given xi. So because this is true, I can separate this product into each individual time instant. The probability of the output given the input is independent. It's a discrete memoryless channel, so therefore each of these channel uses is independent from each other. So therefore I can write this product. So the next definition. Now we talked about encoders. So encoders must use code. So what we're going to do is we're going to take messages from the message source and encode them in some way using the symbols that we're allowed to use over the channel. So an MN, capital N, small n, excuse me, capital M, small n code for the discrete memoryless channel Sx, Sy, P, y given x, consists of well, what should it consist of? It should consist of